Flight 229, you're clear for takeoff.
Just like a flight plan, you have to know where you're going and how you will get there when you plan for retirement. Let Ryan Fleming help you chart out a course for your retirement with his intimate knowledge of financial planning and the airline industry. It's time for the Pilot's Advisor.
Thanks for joining us on the Pilot's Advisor today. We're talking about common housing questions from retirees. Great topic on the program today. Walter Storholt here with Ryan Fleming, financial advisor at Retire Pilots, serving pilots and retirees worldwide, based out of St. Louis. You can find us online at retirepilots.com. Check it out for great information to order your own retirement toolkit. Get a copy of the Pilot's Advisor, Ryan's book. He is the author of that, Why Pilots Today Need Specific Financial Advice. Ryan, great to be with you. What's going on in your world?
Good morning, Walter. I'm at home. Just got my kids sent off to school. And of course, Walter and I will always do the podcast early in the morning. I think Walter's an early riser. I'm
most
more
of
of a night
the time.
person, so yeah, I'm more of a night person. So half the time we're doing our podcast, I'm still sleeping.
Oh, gotcha.
However, today I did have my coffee already. I woke up at 5:30 with my wife Carrie. She's working for the 3-star admiral. The admirals don't actually have stars, but he's the 3-star equivalent here at Transcom at Scott Air Force Base. So she has to get up super early. So when I'm home, it gets me out of bed pretty early.
That's pretty cool, and glad to hear that you are a little bit more awake perhaps than usual today, since you've had the good cup of coffee to start your day. So,
or it's not like 4 a.m. and I'm in Japan and you're just waiting. I guess that doesn't work out. I guess it would be 7 p.m. and you would be here early in the morning.
Usually you've had a very long flight when we go to record the shows, and you're just trying to keep those eyes peeled for a little bit longer to record a show. So. Yeah, we're actually getting you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, the opposite
exactly.
of what it is.
And full disclosure, there's been a couple times where I'm trying to do the math on the different time zones and everything else where I just got done with a long flight and I am just whooped. And I talk to Walter and say, dude, I just don't have it today. I'm sorry.
I mess up the time zones all the time just dealing with the couple that we have here in the States, let alone then, adding another, 21 time zones across the rest of the world. So no big deal.
And I say that to just say thank you for being so understanding at those times where I show up and I'm just like, I just don't think I can get through this today.
Don't mention it. Although, you know what will make life a little bit easier? Now, I don't know how much traveling you do to like Arizona, Ryan, but I will be very glad if they do get rid of the whole daylight savings time deal so that we stop getting off track with Arizona. Because whenever I record with somebody in Arizona and the time changes, they don't observe daylight savings time. So, it just messes up recording times and trying to remember half the year they're on Pacific, the equivalent of Pacific time, and then half the year they're on Mountain time. So it becomes very...
It's just confusing.
Very confusing.
Agree.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about housing on today's show, Ryan. Really important topic for a lot of retirees because, for many of us, the biggest asset perhaps we'll ever own or manage is our home. And so we want to get that part of the financial equation correct, especially in retirement. And it should take up a nice slice, I would imagine, Ryan, of the conversation about retirement planning. And so in today's episode, we're going to cover some common housing questions from retirees, the questions they've probably asked you all the time, Ryan. And I think this will help us hit on an issue that most certainly, at least one of these, is going to be on your mind as you listen to the show today. Ryan, I'm not assuming 100% here, is housing pretty much a very common part of the retirement planning process and a conversation you're having all the time with people?
Well, absolutely. And I think the conversation has drastically changed recently for many, many reasons. Number one, interest rates have been so low for so long. They're starting to creep up now, which is starting to change the conversation a little bit. But also with the massive lack of supply with housing, people's houses are worth so much more. It's going crazy. So it's actually a topic of conversation for many people nearing retirement. Hey, is this a great time to sell because it's such a seller's market? Or can I use so much of this equity for our retirement plan? And so, yes, right now and always really housing is a big topic of conversation with your retirement income plan.
Watching my parents go through this exact thing right now, in fact, with selling their home and the increase in value and how that'll help them in retirement, hopefully, fingers crossed. And they're doing the whole sell the house and then rent for a little while before they retire, and then when they retire, they're moving out of state and going to live somewhere different. So going to be a fun kind of year and a half journey for them as they navigate all those waters here. So let's talk about interest rates, since you brought that up to begin with. Now, they're still really low historically, even though we've seen them tick up a little bit recently. So a lot of the time you get the question, I imagine, Ryan, should I try to pay off the house quickly or pay as little as possible and, use the extra money elsewhere?
Well, Walter, I think that this conversation has really changed over the past couple of years, because when interest rates are around 5, 6, 7%, which is a little bit more historic where they've been, you just want to pay off your house and maybe pay a little bit extra to kill some of that interest. However, with rates so low, I mean, they've been in 2.5, 3%. Your money is so much better off leveraged somewhere else. And the way you ask that question is, can I take my money and do better than 2.5 or 3%? And the answer long term should be all day long. So I think the conversation has changed recently, where people are putting as little down to buy a house and paying as little on their house. Because when you pay into it, you're locking it in at that 2.5 or 3% interest. Where once you pay off a house or keep paying it down, that's kind of a dead asset. It can't really help you in that snowball effect, except for that house appreciating. And unless you have a home equity line of credit or something like that, you don't really have liquidity to get into that asset to help you with anything that comes up in life. The conversation being a little bit different nowadays is, I would say, put as little down, don't pay off your house quickly, and use your money elsewhere. Now, as interest rates are going to start climbing up, and especially this year where we're talking where the Fed's probably going to bump it 4 or 5 times, I think that conversation is going to start to change. But over the last few years, it's been a very different conversation.
Yep, that's very, very true, Ryan. And that'll be one that, if you're listening to this episode a year after it was produced, maybe take that advice in topic 1, put it in the proper perspective, as Ryan's saying, as that interest rate goes up and up, maybe a different conversation down the line, depending on exactly where that tipping point is of rates balancing out, sometime in the future. So we'll keep an eye on it, and certainly consult your advisor with more questions about that. So another common housing question from retirees is it wise to downsize to a smaller home in retirement?
Well, I think this question all depends on your situation. I mean, if you don't have to downsize and you want to stay in the house and have that, legacy for your children where they still get to come home and see the house that they grew up in, well, then do it. But is it wise? Does it make financial sense? Absolutely. Not only are you able to have a house that the utilities are going to be a lot less, but you, in this seller's market, you probably take a huge tax-free capital gain because of the homestead exemption that you can put towards your retirement or to buy a house outright that's smaller. So it really depends on where you're going, what your plans are, what your cash flow situation looks like. But from a standpoint of lowering your costs and lowering your monthly bills, absolutely it makes sense to downsize.
Yeah, it's a big one. And I definitely have heard the conversation from some folks that, like, instead of downsizing, they just say, you know what, let's just stay in our current home where we, raised our family. And also, is it worth the hassle of moving right now with prices being so high everywhere? Maybe downsizing at least is being lowered in the importance spectrum for some people.
Yeah, and I think what your parents are doing is very smart. They're selling in a crazy up market, and realizing that gain now. And they have no problem with renting for a while. And I don't know if there's going to be a bubble. I don't know if there's a real estate bubble, but things can't continue the way they are right now.
Right.
And so if you have some flexibility and you have the ability to do that, I think it's very, very smart. I actually sold both of my houses in Charleston this year because the market is so out of control crazy. I just can't. I'm not saying it's going to drop, but I could see it plateauing for many, many years.
You just couldn't not lock in those gains from the market being so crazy.
One of them was a homestead, because I lived in it 2 of the last 5 years, and there's quite a big gain there. And then I also look at it, the way I look at it is there's such an opportunity in the market right now. With the market being down, I see probably one of the biggest opportunities we've had in a decade right now. And if I'm able to free up cash and buy in with all these deals right now, I just think from a timing perspective, it was huge.
If you've got questions about this, reach out to Ryan by calling or texting 843-475-3038 or go to retirepilots.com, pick up the Retirement Toolkit while you're there. Another common housing question from retirees: is a home equity line a good place to borrow money from for major purchases like home upgrades, new cars, or sizable medical bills?
Well, I think having liquid security is always very, very important. Sadly, many pilots are living paycheck to paycheck. They make great money, but somehow they don't know where all their money goes. So if you don't have a taxable investment account that you can reach out to for major purchases, and one of the problems with real estate is not being able to access that equity. So if you do have a home equity line set up, it's a great place to grab money, to pay off for certain things, because those interest rates are going to be a lot lower than doing a personal loan or trying to pull money from a 401k or one of your retirement accounts, which I just don't agree with, robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I think a home equity line is another way to pull money for upgrades or new cars or medical bills. But I also think having liquid security in other areas is a good thing as well.
So your plan B really should be a more traditional emergency fund, like in a savings account, and then a home equity line type setup would be like the plan B of the plan B, like your extra.
I think that options are the best plan. Have a home equity line, but that doesn't mean you have to tap into it.
Right.
And I don't think once you have enough money set aside, let's say you have a taxable account that has a couple $100,000 in it, I don't even think you need an emergency fund sitting in a savings account where you're losing, 2 to 7% right now, with the way inflation is. I mean, we call that going broke very, very safely. Now, I understand if you're just trying to get out of credit card debt and you're trying to set up and not have an emergency fund in case something happens. But for many of our pilots, this is the last job they'll ever have. It's a pretty secure job. What you really have to worry about is, something coming up with your medical. And I think that'd be the bigger thing. But having liquid security, whether that's in a savings account, a checking account, home equity line of credit, or a taxable investment account, having liquid security is definitely something that you should plan for.
Yeah, we opened up a HELOC just to have it in place, but not with the intention of really using it unless it's just absolutely necessary. So that's our plan X if we needed it to help with some sort of unforeseen thing that the emergency fund couldn't handle.
Exactly, and it doesn't cost anything to have a HELOC out there.
Right? Yeah, like a couple $100 to set it up, and that's it. So then it's just sitting there ready for you anytime you need it, which is helpful. Thanks for listening to The Pilot's Advisor. Hey, if you're ready to have clarity and thrive in your retirement, you're in the right place, and I've got another resource for you to check out. Go to retirepilots.com. That's retirepilots.com. And look right there on the homepage, you'll be able to click Get My Free Toolkit. What this is going to do is help you get, for free, Ryan's Retirement Toolkit. This is going to include his 2 books, The Pilot's Advisor and Pilots Retire Early, revealing the 9 critical decisions when retiring and the 7 lessons to save your retirement. If you're ready to retire early or engage the autopilot on your 401k, these are the books for you, and this is the toolkit for you. Not only does it include the books, but lots of other goodies packed into this free toolkit that'll be sent to you ASAP. All you have to do is go to retirepilots.com. That's retirepilots.com. Click on the Send My Toolkit button, and we'll get it in the mail to you shortly. It's a great starting place for any pilot to begin their retirement journey. Go to retirepilots.com. Should I sign my house over to my kids so they can't force the sale of it down the road in order to pay for something like nursing home costs if I end up needing care? This one gets tricky, doesn't it?
Yeah, this one's really tricky and probably a conversation offline for a different situation. The one thing I'll say about issues like this is do not try to trick the government. Do not try to cut Uncle Sam out of his money. He will find you. And you see situations where people are trying to sell their homes to their children for half of market value and stuff like that. And you're not going to win. Walter will come visit you in the penitentiary, though.
You're signing me up for that? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, you got to, they're going to get their 3 squares a day there. But yeah, I'm not going to come visit.
I guess maybe we could host the podcast from there. How about that?
Well, and another thing, and I'll throw this out there with pilots. There's a lot of pilots that are trying to live in a tax-free state, but not really live there. And I think that's one of those things where you're playing with fire. You're supposed to be in that house 50% out of the year, but yet your kids live somewhere else. You're playing with fire, and it's just not worth it.
That's a great point, and something that a lot of people probably, I imagine, are definitely pushing the limits of. And so that's maybe a good warning. Probably another topic, it's not necessarily specific to retirees in that regard, but maybe many folks that are still in that bracket would be applicable here, where they're doing that dual living in two different places.
Yeah, it might be a great show. And nobody likes to pay taxes. I mean, let's be honest. No one likes to pay taxes. But if you could go back and research all the pilots that have been thrown in jail because of tax evasion or trying to start some business that didn't really matter, or buy land for a business that they don't, just trying to cut back on their taxes because it is W-2 income. We could write a whole book. And my advice to you would be just you have W-2 income. This is a pretty good life. I mean, we are talking about first world problems here. Make the right decision.
That's a good point. Yep. You probably haven't cut corners throughout, a big chunk of your life to get where you are. So not the best to start now. If you want to get in touch with Ryan, talk a little bit more about your financial situation, about these housing questions, maybe how they play into your situation as well, call or text 843-475-3038. Another area to ask questions about retirement and housing is, what complications, if anything, could the house create when it comes to the estate plan?
What do you have for this one, Walter? What do you think?
I would imagine, do you need to, does the home need to be sold, or does somebody take over the care of the home? Can you put in particular wishes? What about taxes in the house? Seems like there could be a lot of different stems from that kind of question.
Well, and I think, and I have a client going through this right now where her mom passed away, and she happens to be over in Germany right now. And so just having your estate in order, it reminds me of that Far Side. I think it was a Far Side or some comic, and it was a son standing outside of a garage with his dad, and this garage is just packed full of, you can't even fit anything else in this garage. And the father's sitting there going, "One day, son, this will all be yours." And I look at it as, don't burden your children with your mess. You might have an estate that's worth a couple $1 million. You might. But if it's not organized and it's not all set up, and you don't have a good trust, and you don't have all your beneficiary paperwork set, or you don't have a life insurance plan, you're actually going to be burdening your children with your lack of planning. And so the one thing I would say about it is just make sure you have everything, have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, so you're not leaving a burden for your children or your other beneficiaries.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially if you've got, multiple, if there are siblings involved. We've all heard the stories of how estate plans in general, but especially when it's housing situations, that can cause problem. I've seen that in various sections of my own family, where in the past, where, a home that was left behind that maybe was also kind of the only thing that was, this is a weird term, so don't take this the wrong way, but the only thing that was worth fighting for that was left behind. I just am not grasping a better term at the moment.
That's what it is. They start fights. One person wants to sell it. One person wants to keep it. It's fights, and it ruins families.
Yep, and I've seen firsthand that kind of damage that can occur from that, unfortunately. Last but not least, let's get into this one, Ryan. We all have seen the ads over the years and heard about them. Reverse mortgages. Are they? I feel like this is in the same category of annuity, like it's a bad word. But also, some people will swear by it. Some people will say it's the scourge of the earth. Where do you stand on reverse mortgages for retirees?
I think it's an option, but you definitely need to do your homework. It's like an annuity. I don't think annuities are good for 97% of the population. But there are times where, your house is an asset. You don't want to lose the house. You don't want to move. But the house is paid off. There's other ways to draw the equity from a house. So I would say do your homework. However, who's the latest that's on TV now that's promoting reverse mortgages? He's got a nice mustache.
Is it Wilford Brimley? Is he still?
No, come on. I thought you'd know this one for sure. That's why I was setting you up. I was teeing you up.
I don't watch commercials anymore. That's the only problem.
He used to drive around in a red convertible on a certain show.
Red convertible on a certain show. You're getting me.
Okay, hold on. We'll have to clean this
Tom
up.
Selleck.
There you go.
So he's the reverse mortgage guy now?
Oh yeah, have you not? I mean,
Okay.
I hate to make it sound like I watch TV all the time, but he is out there like every 5 minutes now talking about reverse mortgages and how he used to not believe in them, but now he knows, that they're helping people and all this stuff.
Yep. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of it's always been somebody with a mustache talking about the reverse mortgages, right?
Well, I never liked reverse mortgages, but now that Tom Selleck's selling them, I mean, I'm all in.
If Tom's on board, then we're on board. Okay. Good.
I mean, the only thing that get better than that is the Hasselhoff.
There
If
you go.
he's talking about reverse mortgages, all in.
I'm sure he is, just maybe in Germany, right? Something like that. So it's interesting, reverse mortgages. It sounds like you're saying, hey, it's not like, oh, just grasp onto this as it's the silver bullet for your retirement plan, but if it gives you more options, let's keep it in our back pocket. Kind of like the HELOC, kind of like some of the other things we've talked about. Keep your options open. It's never a bad thing to have options. So that's a great way to view a lot of these conversations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and there's many ways to skin a cat, or I don't know if I should be saying that, but I think my dad used to say something like that.
Yeah, PETA says you shouldn't say that anymore. Remember a couple years ago they came out with like alternatives for common phrases. They wanted to say have alternatives for like beating a dead horse or skin a cat and those kinds of things. They were like, no, let's do some.
Let's do a show on that. That sounds like fun. I
Yeah.
mean, our podcasts don't have to be about finances, really. We could just have fun.
Sure.
And I think we should do a show on how the more politically correct way to say sayings we've been saying for the past 50 years.
Yeah, here's I'll bring it up real quick. Here's the PETA wanting to change the labels of certain things. So instead of beat a dead horse, it was they suggested let's change it to feed a fed horse. Instead of kill two birds with one stone, let's feed two birds with one scone, which was kind of funny.
So you're more
scones.
politically correct than I am. Here, I want to read you something that I saw the other day that I thought was funny. You ready?
Okay, go ahead.
We live in a time where intelligent people are being silenced so that stupid people won't be offended.
I like that. That makes sense.
I thought it was kind of funny because it's kind of true.
Yeah, I like that. This one was my favorite. Instead of bring home the bacon, since this one's financial, we'll end it on this one. Instead of bringing home the bacon, you got to change that, Ryan. But the alternatives isn't too bad. You're just going to bring home the bagels. That's it. Yeah, bring home the bagels.
What's wrong with bacon anyway?
Well, I mean, it's PETA, so they don't, bacon means dead animals, so they're like, bring home the bagel.
My poor daughter, because my wife's a vegetarian, and so my daughter growing up has always been, I guess, vigilant of what she's eating, and she'd be like, Mom, what is this pig? What is this? And I don't know. It's just kind of funny how the conversations have gone in our house over the years.
Yep. It's just funny. I just love the different suggestions of the changing the phrases. Instead of be the guinea pig, I should have ended it on the bacon and bagels one, but I got to throw out the last one here. Instead of be the guinea pig, we're gonna be the test tube. That one I don't like. That one just sounds really weird.
I got nothing.
I'm gonna be the test tube for this experience.
We're gonna have some very fun shows in the future.
Oh my goodness, it's gonna get dangerous, folks. Well, it's just great to get this housing guidance from you, Ryan. Good thoughts on all these questions. They're common, so if you're thinking about something like this, maybe we didn't cover specifically your question, or you want to go into exactly what your situation looks like. Give Ryan a call or shoot him a text. Have a conversation about it. 843-475-3038. He can review your financial plan and talk to you about how to structure it properly in the future and beyond. 843-475-3038 or go online to retirepilots.com, and we'll put the contact info in the description of today's show. Before we wrap up, we'll have a little bit more loose fun. Time to get to know Ryan a little bit better.
It's getting to know you time.
What age, if you could just snap your fingers and make this happen, do you wish you could permanently be?
Well, I guess I'd have to think about this, but right now, off the top of my head, I would like to be 9 years old. And the reason why I say
9,
that...
okay.
9, yes. We moved into a new neighborhood out here by Scott Air Force Base, and my son literally comes home, drops his bag, and he's back out the door, running around the neighborhood with all the neighborhood kids, going down to the creek, playing basketball, playing baseball, riding bikes, doing whatever they would do. And it kind of reminds me of my childhood back when you could just let the kids go and run and not worry about where they are. because we kind of have this neighborhood that's kind of cut off from everything else, so we don't worry. And so watching where he's at right now, where he doesn't come back until dusk with mud all over his face and he's sweating, and I don't even know all the places he's been, I think 9's a perfect age.
That's pretty cool. Not a bad answer. I'd probably go with 17 or 18. I had a really good junior and senior year of high school, and just really enjoyed those 2 years. So I would be okay locking that in. It's a hard question to answer because I don't know. You can have pluses and minuses of all of those ages, but
well, absolutely. I think about my senior year in high school, and it was fantastic. I have great memories of that. Of course, there was a lot of stresses on your plate about college and what's next.
True.
The 9-year-old boy that's coming in my door right now, he doesn't have a care in the world.
Yeah, that's true. If we could all at least experience that again for even just a little while, if you could bottle up that feeling and sell it to people, you'd be a very rich man. Because something you can't really get back, right? Once you get these worries on your mind, even if you're a pretty calm person, they're still going to be there because that's just how life works. So, yeah, if you could capture and bottle that up, that'd be pretty cool. Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. We'll talk to you next time right back here on The Pilot's Advisor.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.